everyone, and welcome back to Hot Tea. Today we have a hot tea history lesson on dissociadid with a recap of the recent issues recently shared on their channel. But before jumping in, be sure to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and turn on your post notifications. Here is a quick trigger warning for discussions regarding mental health, self-harm, suicide, racism, pornography, fetishes, and CP. As always, everything that I say is alleged. And as I mentioned in my other videos, mental health is something that we do not take lightly, and though it comes up frequently as part of the stories that we report on, mental health is not tea, and we know this. Please visit the resources on the screen and in the description box below if you're struggling.
I do have to preface by saying this is not intended to be an attack towards either YouTube or Prosta.
Dissociadid is a channel here on YouTube created by a system with DID, otherwise known as dissociative identity disorder. The intention behind making the Dissociated channel was to educate people about DID because there is so much misinformation, especially on social media. We encourage you to do your own research off of social media for further learning. If you're already familiar with DID and Dissociated, feel free to go drink some water and come back, or skip ahead about 3 minutes. I just want to make sure you're hydrating enough, boo. I did some research and will synthesize valuable points and commonly used terminology. Identity develops based on your given traits, opinions, beliefs, experiences, reactions, and personality. You may feel like there are many sides to who you are, especially depending on changing circumstances, but generally everyone has one consistent core identity. That is, unless you have something like DID, in which case you may have several identities that switch from one to another without conscious or purposeful effort and often without realizing it's happening. In DID, individuals have several different identities, each one being different from the rest. They can switch between identities instantly, even without knowing or intending to switch. The disorder is clinically characterized by significant disruptions of identity due to the presence of distinct alternate personality states which take one's control episodically. Dissociative identity disorder involves a lack of connection among a person's sense of identity, memory, and consciousness. People with this disorder do not have more than one personality, but rather less than one personality. Psychotherapist Dana Dorfman further explained, people with DID are unable to integrate different emotional states into one cohesive sense of self. It's thought that DID forms as a coping mechanism for repeated instances of childhood abuse. Dr. Julie Bartholds, a clinician based in the US, explains DID is a trauma disorder, not a party trick. Dissociation describes a mental process of disconnecting from one's thoughts, feelings, memories, or sense of identity. DID does not exist without amnesia walls or gaps in memory. Those with dissociative disorders experience persistent amnesia, depersonalization, derealization, or fragmentation of identity that actually interferes with the normal process of working through and putting into perspective traumatic or stressful experiences. The number of identities commonly referred to as alters typically range from around 2 to even 100, though more have been reported. According to current research, the average is around 10. The term alter is commonly used in place of altered state of consciousness. Alters who are children are referred to as littles. DID alters can have different physical features, accents, memories, ages, names, functions, genders, and other traits. Collectively, all the alters together are known as the system. Alter identities are created to manage either overwhelming trauma or changes in everyday life that cannot be managed by any existing identities. The alter who has executive control over the body most of the time is known as the host. The host personality may or may not be the individual's original personality. When someone is faced with trauma, the distress it causes can become too much for the person's mind to take in. Rather than feeling overwhelmed, the mind can automatically switch to a different way of thinking and feeling, and this is called dissociation. Dissociation is a way of managing extreme feelings. Where we are starting off, the host of Dissociated was named Nin, who integrated due to the merging of two former alters, Chloe, the original host, and Nina, a sexual alter. Currently, the host is Kaya, an integration of Nin and Kyle, a protector alter. Kaya is gender fluid and uses she, they, or he pronouns. Their system was generally referred to as dissociated and not just as their brand, so that is how I refer to the system. However, on some personal accounts unrelated to their YouTube, the system seems to be referred to as Kaya and Co. On March 4th, 2020, Anthony Padilla released I Spent a Day with Multiple Personalities, Dissociative Identity Disorder. This video featured Dissociated and two other systems interviewed about their DID experiences. Dissociated already had some YouTube success at this point, but the interview and the events that followed definitely brought them the biggest wave of attention since the channel's conception in 2018. Originally, Dissociated was not even meant to take part in this interview. At the time, Anthony was working with a casting agency that had reached out to Multiplicity and Me, another system that is part of YouTube's DID community. However, the agency did not initially realize that Multiplicity and Me were UK-based, and they lacked the budget to bring them over to the US. Nice research. Multiplicity and Me said that they were glad to give the opportunity to a US system, but they then found out that the person selected identified as an endogenic plural. Endogenic multiplicity is different from DID, something Multiplicity and Me frequently talks about. Multiplicity and Me wrote to the agent offering to come to do the interview using their own funds, and the agent agreed and said a producer would reach out to discuss the next steps. However, days passed and no call came. While that situation was being sorted, Multiplicity and Me posted about it in a group that Nin was part of. It turns out that Nin saw this post and reached out to the same casting agent who spoke with Multiplicity and Me to inquire about the interview spot. Even though Dissociated is also UK-based, and the agent responded saying Multiplicity and Me were handling it. Unsatisfied, Nin found a separate email address for someone else in the agency and was able to swoop in, also offered to pay her own way, and was accepted as the third interviewee, and Multiplicity and Me lost out. Unsurprisingly, Anthony had communication issues with this agency and quickly stopped working with them. Multiplicity and Me were understandably very hurt and disappointed and said that they felt like the rug had been pulled out from under them. They reached out to Nin, someone that they considered a friend, and she responded to their feelings of betrayal by saying it's just business. Anthony's video garnered a lot of attention, and where there's attention, there's Trisha Paytas. 8 days after Anthony's video hit the net, Trisha Paytas released a video on their channel called Meet My Alters, Dissociative Identity Disorder. In this video, Trisha claims to have DID. Mind you, this was about the time Trisha's scandal pretending to be transgender was starting to die down. To be clear here, we are calling out Trisha Paytas for faking having this disorder. Not only because they faked it so poorly to the point that it was distasteful and offensive mockery, but primarily because Trish has since admitted to not having DID. Months ago, when Trisha briefly secured some respect for having honesty about their mental health, they said that they have schizophrenia, which is often compared to DID but is actually quite different. Trisha received a lot of backlash to her Meet My Alters video, but instead of saying, sorry I was wrong, oops I'll do better, Trisha doubled down and made more videos really pushing the topic. Nin filmed a live reaction to Trisha's first DID video after hearing her system had been mentioned, and Nin called out many instances where what Trisha was saying was entirely incorrect about DID. Then Trisha made videos directed at Anthony and more videos at Nin, including Dissociated, Please Stop Bullying Us. In this video, Trisha said, we're not making videos to hurt you, we're making videos to tell our story. It was because of you that we were able to talk about our mental illness. Wow, how sweet. Except then in the description box of that same video, Trisha put a link to a different YouTube video that accused Dissociated of faking. Come on. In Trisha's video, she specifically called out Dissociated and called them crazy. If you aren't aware, this is not a nice thing to call people who struggle with mental illness. After calling Dissociated crazy, Trisha said, I did nothing but share my truth, and now I'm being mocked because I'm known as the crazy mentally unstable troll of YouTube. Logic is to mock a mentally unstable person. Maybe Trisha's podcast, The Dish with Trish, was short-lived because they can dish it but can't take it. While Trisha's channel certainly gained engagement, this situation also brought a lot of attention to Dissociated, and for the most part, this attention was very positive. It seems people may have a soft spot for those in Trisha's line of fire, especially people who appear to be kind, knowledgeable, and innocent, and want to educate people on something stigmatized rather than further stigmatizing it. Plus, Nin sounding a little like a sultry Mary Poppins certainly worked to her favor. However, things soon went downhill. At the time, Nin was engaged to Nan, the host of a system called Team Pinata. Also, Dissociated's Kyle was dating Team Pinata's Jeremy. After some digging by Granddad's Lounge on YouTube, Nan started being exposed for their various styles of NSFW art. There would be nothing wrong with drawing nude or even erotic artwork. I mean, have you seen a Renaissance painting? People have been making public boob art since like the 1400s, and I bet there are some erotic etchings in a cave somewhere from even earlier. The problem is that Nan was drawing pornographic comics featuring child-aged characters. It shouldn't come as a surprise that people were going nuts, but Nan's first response was acting like the whole thing was totally innocent, and it wasn't. Nan had a fetish for sneezing and nosebleeds, really just thought noses were the most beautiful part of the body, and they certainly didn't shy away from any substances that came from noses, and drew a lot of child-age characters sneezing, which, yeah, might be innocent if it weren't a fetish. But Nan said fetishes are always sexual and necessary for what the French call a little death, la petite mort. Not kink shaming, just saying that they were drawn to be sexual. There were also erotic writings, including a story of two characters going at it, specifically in a kid's bed. And these pictures weren't just posted to their blog, but they took commissions and sold these images. There are a lot of fucked up claims against Nan. I was going to describe some pictures, but I don't want to. They're very disturbing. This isn't a Nan video, and I think I've gotten the message across. I don't think I can wait until the end to look at some eye bleach, so let's take a look at some sweater puppies real quick. Okay, that's better. Of course, with Nan under so much fire, Nin was also heavily questioned. I imagine this was incredibly overwhelming. Nin reported a suicide attempt and then disappeared. This created an online frenzy, and other members of the DID community were dragged in, including the entropy system, who called Nin out of dropping off the face of the earth after making people worried, and said Nin told them that they posted about the suicide attempt to teach trolls a lesson about consequences, aka for attention. Dissociated denies that it was just for attention and just wants to be left alone. Nan was fully cancelled and chased off the internet, never to be heard from again. Hopefully they are somewhere improving themselves. However, Nan was working behind the scenes trying to get others in the community to give Nan another chance and ask people if they'd stay friends with Nan and not publicly call out their behavior. Eventually, Nin released a video saying that they didn't know Nan was creating these drawings and potentially a heap file, saying they can't support that behavior. They hinted at the engagement being called off, however, they didn't say it directly, probably because they still secretly stayed in their relationship with Team Pinata for months after addressing the situation. Understandably, many people are unhappy that Dissociated defended a predator and find it unsettling that they could stay in that relationship. Barely any time passes and Nin is pretty much still staying in the dark, but soon people start calling out Dissociated for instances of racism. This is for two reasons. The first reason is that Nin called an alter Black and Native American and said the system had an Asian alter named Gregory. Dissociated was also accused of deleting comments from people of color for calling out their offensive behavior. People basically said the alters can have darker skin or lighter skin, but saying they're Black, for example, when the body is white, it feels unfair because being Black comes with many other experiences and prejudices that the body does not have to be subjected to. Reddit user not even sure lol cry, love that username by the way, wrote an explanation I found very helpful, powerful, and well written on the Dissociated Reddit page. Here are some excerpts from their post. It's racist to use a race opposite the body to describe an alter because race isn't just color or hairstyles or facial features. It's history, culture, oppression, ancestry, traditions, and sacred spirituality. When someone says their alter is Black, they are inherently claiming things that don't and never will belong to them in a white body, or they're just using Black as a descriptor of appearances only, which is tone deaf and strips away everything Black besides dark skin and box braids. It hurts people of color for white systems to reduce their personhood to appearance to describe an alter. It hurts them to have their race taken and used in such a nonchalant way, erasing the actual meaning and history of being that race. Systems can have alters that look like anything, but white systems need to learn to use better language to describe alters who don't look like the body. You technically can, but if you use a minority race as a descriptor, it's racist. Dissociated posted their apology several weeks after being confronted, allegedly because they were being educated on the matter before speaking on it. They posted the apology on Tumblr and a lot of people missed it. were called out for this and encouraged to make a YouTube video to explain the issue to others, but they didn't want to because their channel is for education. But is this not a great opportunity to be an ally and to educate? I don't get that. They kept saying that they already apologized and were forgiven and know better now, but the person who provided resources to educate them and who supposedly forgave them actually did not forgive them. The person said, "I'm the system of color who made the document. This story is partially true in that we talked, and I plus another system of color and a white system educated her on this issue." She told at least 2 of us that she was planning to make an apology video and that never did. She also was extremely defensive at the beginning of the conversation, and I had to ask that to stop. After that conversation, we all got ghosted by them, never spoken to again until asked to proofread an apology that would get deleted like a week later. It's just weird to me that she's using my friend and me as a defense when we both think that she's racist and that she lied to us about what the apology was going to be. It was put on their least popular social media and then deleted. Nin told one person they talked to a person of color who forgave them, and they have not repeated their behavior and already made an apology. The person they were talking to was like, "You know, there's more than one of us and we have different opinions, right? So one person of color saying you're forgiven doesn't mean everyone forgives you." Then when one of Dissociated's friends brought the race issue up with them, Nin responded, "Our lives matter too." Recently, Kaya, the current host, has been accused of inappropriate interactions with underage fans, including many duets with minors. There is a disclaimer on their profile that the content is for 18 plus, so even non-sexual interactions with minors are still thought to be inappropriate. It doesn't make much sense to tell anyone under 18 that your content isn't for them, but then engage with them. Another example of Dissociated seeing themselves as the main character is when Chloe posted on Facebook publicly calling out a cancer patient, saying, "As sorry as I am to hear about your illness and wish you the best for recovering, as someone with cancer, you will never have to worry that a cancer-based film will result in you being refused treatment, your friends and family becoming afraid that you might genuinely murder them, being constantly told that your illness isn't real, having an extremely limited amount of research available to understand your illness, or of being confined to a psych ward against your will and without treatment." Like, yikes, can we not try to compete for who has it worse? There are several other reasons why so many people are against Dissociated. I'll touch on quickly. The most commonly discussed points include the aforementioned racism and Dissociated's treatment of different systems in the community and their supposed friends. In particular, there were a lot of issues between Dissociated and another system, Bobo and Co. Nan and Nin made a video with Bobo and were so focused on each other and not listening to what Bobo was saying at some points while showcasing some PDA that was uncomfortable as part of the serious video with another person present. During the trip to see Bobo and Co., Nin and Nan spent 3 out of 5 days together in bed at their Airbnb, which was vlogged, and only 2 of those days briefly seeing Bobo when the purpose of their trip was to spend time together. The 3 systems did a live stream together, and money donated to share was never split with Bobo, who was struggling financially. When Bobo visited and stayed with Dissociated in the UK, they said Nin and Nan locked themselves in Nin's room and left Bobo and Co to their own devices, even when a little was fronting, scared, and alone. Bobo and Co made a live commenting on all of this and said that Dissociated probably just used them to get an invite to a DID sleepover tea party and then dropped them when they were no longer useful. Plus, they traumatized Bobo and Co at the sleepover. I have some clips from the live. Bobo was having some understandable trouble sharing everything, so they were very quiet and spoke slowly, so this might be a little choppy, but I just edited it for clarity, not to change what was said.
Me and Chloe met through my YouTube comments. We became best friends. At the tea party, she got triggered, switched, and freaked out. So I took her out, I wanted to calm her down. I wanted to help her. What happened really affected me, and I still really get flashbacks to it. It wasn't fair to put me in that position. We stepped aside and I'm trying to calm her down, and she starts to fall deeper into a flashback or something, and she starts wailing and sobbing, and she starts clawing at me, and she's doing this to me, she's grabbing at me, she's screaming that she can't breathe in my face. She then starts scratching her neck. I already have trauma with that sort of thing, and I couldn't do anything. It was getting worse and worse and worse, and some of the things that happened in front of me were not fair, were not easy to witness. I eventually calmed her down and she switched. I handed her over to Stacy, I believe, or someone, and I travelled home. And when I got home, I had a complete breakdown. and she acted like nothing happened. So the next thing happened was the Plymouth visit. This was the first time that I proper felt her. We were talking about her coming to visit me, coming to stay at my house, and you know, I could show her around my hometown. I was like, okay, cool, so I have a sofa and we can make up a bed on the floor for one of you. And she says, oh no, don't worry, we've got an Airbnb. I was like, okay, and that kind of hurt. It comes to the day they arrive. I message her, I'm like, what time do you get in? I'll come and meet you at the train. And she says, no, we just want to get back to our hotel. So I was like, okay, that's okay, fine. Do you want to meet up later for a drink or some food? No, we wanna just rest. We've been traveling. So the next day I asked if they wanted to meet up and they said no. The next day we met up around 3 p.m. They told me they were having anxiety problems and flashbacks and stuff, but then I watched their vlogs and they were just in bed. We painted the pot and had some dinner, and then they wanted to go back home. Next day we didn't see each other because I saw them for about 2 hours when we painted pots, and then I saw them for about 3 hours-ish when we filmed the collabs, and then I saw them to pick up pots and say goodbye. They were supposed to be staying at mine for 5 days, and this was supposed to be a trip to visit me, and it became a Plymouth trip where they bumped into me. Then I went to visit them. That was so much worse. I felt like I was not wanted there. Every night they would go to bed at 7 or 8 p.m. just be up there giggling and laughing and watching stuff. I would just be sat alone downstairs. There were so many moments, so many little things. I don't want to be talking about too many of the little things because I don't want to seem petty, but there were so many little things. The way that Jeremy treated Toast in that live stream was awful. Anytime him and Kyle spoke to each other, the looks, the snappy comments were awful. During that live stream, there was so much money donated to them to say, like, have a good time with your friend, go out on a trip, do something like that. Some guys sent $333 or something because there was 3 of us, and he said, like, go and have a really good time. After that live stream, we got Thai food. They said, oh, can you send me 20 quid, please? I had £60 to last me the whole month. And I was just shocked, you know? I was like, doesn't Thai food count as a nice thing? Okay, no. There was one moment me and Chloe got to spend some quality time together. About 20 minutes, I was showing her this TV show. Pinata said, you know, you two are best friends, have some time. Chloe glances out the door to check on Pinata, and they've gone missing. They had literally up and ran away, so Chloe had to run after them. Pinata needed Chloe's attention. Layla comes out and she has very severe separation anxiety. She starts really panicking. She's in a place she doesn't know. She's alone, so she musters up the courage to go upstairs, knocks on the door, opens it, and they're in there, they're like half asleep with the lights on, and Jeremy shoots out of bed and pushes her out of the room, and he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, I want to see Chloe, I want to give her a hug, I'm scared. And Jeremy's like, no, you can't see Chloe right now, you've got to go to bed. So he ushers her downstairs, not even puts her in bed, just goes, go to bed. She gets scared again and stays away. There was a moment when they just screamed, both of them were just screaming at Toast to break up with Casey because, I don't know, there was a fight. Like, couples have little squabbles, you know, and it wasn't bad, but it wasn't Toast's business either, and they were just yelling at him, you need to dump him, you need to do this, blah blah blah, and Toast just kept saying, this is not my decision, this is not my choice, stop talking to me about it, I am 12. I went to the shop with Pinata because Chloe had a therapy, and Pinata looked like I'd murdered their cat the entire time. I was supposed to be going up there again to see just Chloe, and that was going to go well, and then she cancelled on me, and I haven't seen her since. She doesn't care about any of us, doesn't care who she hurts. Once I was no longer helpful, I was gone. She would tell me all the time that she loved me. She was here for me. I had had so many bad close calls, and I'd messaged her as my best friend going, hey, I need you right now, and I'd get nothing. I would get no response. She wouldn't answer my calls, nothing. Maybe days later, I'd get a message saying, oh, were you okay? So I just stopped trying. People reaching out to me like, is she okay? Because she's been doxxed. Is she okay? And I'm like, she's not gonna freaking answer me. You know, they used me, they hurt me a lot, you know, and I've had to carry a lot for a long time because they were so praised. No, I didn't get any of the donation money after. Do you think dissociated system are good people that have just made mistakes? Honestly, I don't know. Some of the things that I've seen them do, I don't know anymore.
There is a lot of speculation regarding the validity of dissociatid's diagnosis. I'm not a doctor, so I can't give an answer as to whether or not this is true, but I will give examples of reasons why it's been highly discussed. The story of dissociatid's diagnosis is a little wishy-washy, especially after being spread around so many times, and people accuse Chloe of doctor shopping and suggesting DID until getting the diagnosis that she wanted. Chloe wrote an article about self-diagnosis, and many people are agitated by the encouragement to self-diagnose. This is a valid concern, as feigning mental illness for attention is outrageously harmful and taking the internet by storm. I don't recommend diagnosing yourself online, but I also can acknowledge that people want to understand what they're experiencing, and some cannot get accurate diagnoses from qualified professionals. I could debate about this for a long time, but the point is that this critique of dissociated advocating for self-diagnosis may not be entirely fair, and it's a highly complex subject. Other people have problems with the content on the channel being outdated, incorrect, or too focused on alters and romanticizing the condition rather than educating on how to cope and get help. They also use a lot of clickbait tactics, which can feel belittling and minimizing. They also place ads very strategically, like right at the moment dissociation starts, and people don't love that. Dissociated also shared that they had a happy childhood, and neither dissociated nor their parents have any idea what ritualistic trauma may have occurred to cause the DID. A lot of people find this questionable, as ritualistic child abuse makes DID develop, even though amnesia walls are also part of DID. Dissociated has mentioned having flashbacks during periods of stress, but doesn't provide details. We aren't entitled to know anyone's trauma, and it's quite possible dissociated did experience childhood trauma. Again, we are just sharing commonly discussed topics. But dissociated does technically have a professional diagnosis, and that diagnosis is recognized in legal documents for what it's worth. People have called out that DID is a hidden disorder and alters pretend to be the host when fronting, whereas all alters within dissociated are unique, and it is clear which alter is hosting. They also follow a specific pattern of characters that are used by people who are faking. For example, the bro with the beanie,
Also, we're in a
the shy little kid,
I can't answer until you tell me.
Okay.
I'm too small.
Yeah.
the tough protective one that doesn't want to participate but does, the super cute happy and artsy one, etc. Also, each alter supposedly made their own Spotify playlist, and they were all made on the same day. The possibility of each alter fronting and creating a playlist in one day is extremely unlikely. There are several types of DID, and everyone's experience is different, so some of the things people point out may not be unrealistic. Again, this is not a video to determine whether or not their diagnosis is accurate, just sharing what has been given as reasons for doubt, because many, including myself, were surprised to see people accusing them of faking. Dissociated has been accused of copying other artists' work, noting similarities between pieces. This is something Nin apologized for once when she used an artist's comic template without credit, but it's mostly not addressed. People have also said that Dissociated is greedy, scamming their followers, especially on their Patreon. They collected money for a fundraiser and were donating every month. They kept up the podcast they made with Nan to keep collecting funds, even though Nin sounded like they were deleting the podcast on all platforms. The Dissociated Reddit is very well organized and has a lot of information compiled if you want to know more details and examples. After all of the chaos culminating in mid-2020, Dissociated almost entirely dropped off the face of the internet, except for a few updates here and there mentioning a stalker and needing privacy. Their Patreon for art stayed active so they could have money for rent, bills, etc., and their YouTube videos stayed up even though new content was rare on all accounts. Finally, we got an update as to what's been going on. I'm now going to try and sum up the most recent situation with Dissociated and another person who briefly worked with Nan on the channel anonymously. It seems he does not want his name mentioned for privacy, so to avoid any potential issues, I will not be sharing his name. Let's just, for the sake of it, call him Fettuccine. Fettuccine reached out to Nin via email to ask if he could help with anything on the channel, such as script editing or research. Nin declined several times, but he was persistent, saying that he did not need to be credited or paid for any of his contributions. Eventually, Nin accepted some help but continued to be skeptical of his motivations. He repeated his reassurances that at no point will he change his mind and suddenly demand recognition or credit. He said all he wants is to assist with a project that he's passionate about. He said his job is not fulfilling and he's just helping the rich get richer. He believes in the Dissociated channel and just wants to help, help, so you all probably know exactly where this is about to go. Fettuccine, according to Kaya, helped dissociated in 3 ways. 1, he helped with 2 scripts at a stretch, though he says 3 scripts. 2, he helped with pre-written responses for when commentators asked about triggering or challenging subjects they had already posted about so that the person commenting could easily be redirected. And 3, he reviewed a disclaimer to put into the description boxes of all of Dissociated's videos. Nin wrote it, but he gave some feedback. She updated all her older videos with the new disclaimer. In August, things started to get icky. Kaya doesn't read any of the text out loud, but posts their WhatsApp communications on screen, and holy they're really something. Fettuccine asks Nin to be more affectionate, and she said that she does not feel it's appropriate. She asked him, "Why did you start advising us? Did you just want to get close to us?" He says, "Of course not. I wanted to help you." She said, "Then I don't understand why personal boundaries change that. I'm a bit confused." And he, in total nice guy fashion, says, "I guess now I care too much about you." He also found their personal boundaries confusing. Nin seems to mention her previous concerns about being taken advantage of, especially as he is 12 years older and has more life experiences. He said, "I thought after all this time you could see me for what I am, but I guess I was wrong." He says it makes him feel sad that she is still waiting for the other shoe to drop. He asks her why she doesn't feel comfortable being more affectionate. Then 2 days later, he said, "I didn't even ask you to explain why you aren't more affectionate. You insisted on doing so." Eventually, Nin says that she can't keep having this conversation because it's distressing. And he said, "You're not the person I thought you were. As of tomorrow, I'll no longer be helping with anything. You got what I said all wrong. Do you want to talk and try to save this?" She said she needed time because she was feeling upset. He responds with several miles of text taking back what he said, reiterating previous points. He tells her how she feels a little bit and some stuff that feels gaslighty, and he said, "Please stop worrying. I want to be in a romantic relationship with you." "I don't want to be in a romantic relationship with anyone." "Yes, I find you attractive. So what? Can't you find a friend beautiful and attractive without wanting to get into their pants? Not everyone is that basic." Following day, Nin writes a message saying they can't agree on how the system and Fettuccine can work together and make everyone happy. "We've achieved great results together. Thank you for your help. We wish you the best." He sends 2 mystery voice memos totaling a little under 2 minutes, then writes begging for another chance. He tries to call her 4 times in 3 minutes. She doesn't answer, then writes, "We are uncomfortable with the way you talk to us and have repeatedly revisited the same issues. We have decided it's best for us to go our separate ways. We appreciate that you reached out to us with an offer to help and remain grateful for everything that you've done. We wish you all the best." He comes back with questions about what she means and says never in his life has anyone had a talk with him about boundaries and appropriate behavior because he's not that guy. He said that he couldn't let this go and to please forgive him for anything that he's done. He said that they could keep it strictly professional going forward and please don't take Dissociated away from me. Nin doesn't respond. The next day, she writes to him asking him to change the 2-step verification info for an account from his number to hers and please log out. He says no. She's like, "It's my business. I need access." And he said, "Reach out to Google then." Then he tells her that he will be reaching out to lawyers specializing in copyright to protect his rights over the content that he helped create. Wait, what's that? That thing that just dropped? Ah, I see. It's the other shoe. At first glance, these texts are all too familiar. Good lord, the number of times that I've dealt with this nice guy It's the guy trying to seem like he doesn't want a relationship, says some generic things that he thinks sound chivalrous, pushes until the girl finally puts her foot down, then takes it all back and begs how to make it right. Girl stands her ground, guy turns into a 4-year-old brat who won't share the toys that belong to the whole class. Alright, I'm trying to give a straightforward timeline of events for the next bit. So, Fettuccine refuses to share the toys and threatens to tell his mommy. Kaya gets a court-ordered injunction. Fettuccine submits copyright claims for all videos with the disclaimer that he proofread, including videos from years before Fettuccine and Dissociated started collaborating. By the way, it was Fettuccine's idea to put the new disclaimer in all videos, including ones from years past. Kaya takes the disclaimers out of the description boxes. Kaya submits a counterclaim and contested his complaints. YouTube restores the videos. Fettuccine submits the complaints again, even with the infringing materials removed, and publicly complains to YouTube in a 19-tweet long Twitter rant. 3 videos were never re-uploaded by Dissociated, which are the 3 that he claims to have assisted on the script, even though he barely did, and those are the only 3 videos that are part of the lawsuit. The other 79 videos that just had the disclaimer, which have been removed, were taken down again, and YouTube will not restore them due to ongoing proceedings, even though those videos are not part of the lawsuit. Fettuccini even managed to submit copyright claims on videos that were unlisted or private. Kaya has no idea how he even got access to those videos in order to submit those claims. Creepy. Dissociadid also has 12 channel strikes and received a notice of possible permanent channel deletion from YouTube, but YouTube is giving an extension until the court reaches a decision. YouTube has considered that all the complaints are coming from one person and are not unique, as well as the harassment claims and ongoing court proceedings, so Dissociadid is not deleted, but the possibility remains. In the meantime, Dissociadid has been re-uploading some of their old videos, however, they no longer have all the files. Fettuccini then serves Chloe, Dissociated's legal name, and Dissociadid Ltd with copyright infringement, calling them to legal proceedings in the Court of Intellectual Property. Dissociadid served Fettuccini with a counterclaim as well as separate harassment claims. The court granted Dissociadid an emergency interim injunction and a power of arrest against Fettuccini following a hearing for the harassment case, which will remain valid until the next hearing, which will likely be held mid-2022. Kaya said that he responded by leaking where she lives, but he just said her town, which isn't something she's tried to keep hidden. It almost sounds like she is implying that he doxed her, but that's not actually private information that can't already be found online. Dissociadid no longer has the option to submit a counterclaim to Fettuccini's false copyright claims. The only option is to reach out directly to Fettuccini despite harassment claims and injunction, which YouTube knows. Kaya says after the first court session, Fettuccini's lawyers dropped him. He hired a new one for one of their issues, but is representing himself for the other issue, meaning Dissociadid has to deal with Fettuccini directly in that scenario as well. We saw how they're able to talk things out, so that should be fine, right? It just makes no sense when his copyright claim literally says that he co-authored the disclaimer and now the disclaimer is gone. So why are 79 videos not part of court proceedings still down? Fettuccini was like, oh, first YouTube takes videos down, but then later says my copyrighted content can't be found. What's that about? Like, my guy, the disclaimer is gone, so there is nothing to find when your complaint was about the disclaimer. You got what you asked for, so the videos went back up. Of course, he just had to complain and the videos were removed again. On top of this, Vangelina has reported on the situation and Fettuccini copyright struck her videos too, except Vangelina said the issue isn't copyright, but defamation of character. I read the pre-judgment write-up from the first hearing, but I didn't learn anything new and significant. It was written by the Deputy Judge of the Intellectual Property Enterprise Court, Miss Reorder Amanda Michaels. The document lists Fettuccini as the claimant and Dissociadid Ltd and Chloe Wilkinson, the system's legal name, as defendants. Case does not seem very different from the explanation Kai gives in the video posted on December 19th. It's a giant document, but to summarize in very basic terms to the best of my ability, the judge says that while some parts of this case seem very straightforward, she believes the issues should be heard in county court with further evidence. In Kaya's video, things appear very straightforward, so it is interesting that the judge had suspicions. And here are a few interesting things. There was no official contract for the work, however, there were 2 NDAs signed and plenty was agreed upon in more casual forms of written communication. Dissociadid said that Fettuccini violated the NDA and that the breach of NDA has been calculated as £5,000 to £15,000, but to directly quote the document, there is no evidence to show how likely it is that damages would fall into the higher end of that bracket. If damages fall into the lower part of the range, then this counterclaim may well not be worth the candle, and it seems likely that the costs of dealing with the point could equal or exceed the likely recovery. Fettuccini has been pretty active responding to people on Twitter in the past couple of days. He said that the reason he's filing claims and spending all this money is that he doesn't want his name or work associated with what he believes is fraud. This is very confusing because no one even knew he wrote anything. He has said that he has no reason to believe Dissociadid was faking, and he researched his own work. So what fraud is he talking about? He also said that he didn't strike any videos once the disclaimer was removed, but he did. When the videos went back up, he complained and got them taken down again. He also can withdraw the claims and the videos will go back up without the disclaimer, but he won't do that. Then he said the removal of the disclaimer is irrelevant because he wants her to admit to copyright infringement, but that goes against the only reason behind this is to remove his name that isn't even there. I don't know. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in court. He also takes back that he finds her attractive, and I just rolled my eyes so hard they fell out of my head. Another interesting thing is that Dissociated has been on the other side of this before. When Granddad's Lounge released an extensive series looking into Dissociated, and they didn't like what he had to say and filed claims against his channel. A YouTuber summed it up while saying, Chloe gave 3 copyright strikes to Granddad's Lounge because, according to her, Granddad's Lounge manipulated her content to promote dangerous conspiracy theories. I think this is BS. Granddad's Lounge found out Chloe copied some of her alters and her inner world from books, and now she wants to silence them. Granddad's Lounge is the YouTuber who called people's attention to Nan's drawing, by the way. We have been watching for updates, but it doesn't seem much will happen until mid-2022 and the next hearing. Dissociated's friend Bray DID is talking about making a video or podcast with Dissociated to answer common questions from people on the Dissociated subreddit. I'm not sure how it's going or when it's going to be posted. Bray DID seems stressed, but it's said to be in the works. Please leave a comment letting us know what you think about the situation. Do you believe Fettuccine has a chance in court? I really don't know. Anyway, have a great rest of your day and be sure to come back soon for our next video. Here's another cute video to end for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you tomorrow.